Hey everyone, welcome back to my Expensive Connoisseur World channel, where we dive deep into the world of coins, collectibles, and their liberté, egalite, fraternit, 1 cent 1957 D, United States of America, e pluribus. In God we trust, liberty, republic, lager fool you are, in effect, holding to pocket-sized civics lessons up to the light, one French, one American, each struck in metal, each announcing in a few compressed words what a nation thinks about itself, and each backed by a long history of politics, art, and engraving. Start with the American side. The 1957 Lincoln Cent tells you it was made at the Denver Mint, belongs to the last act of the famous wheat reverse series. The wheat ears disappear after 1958, replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial. Designed originally in 1909 by Victor David Brenner to mark the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the coin's obverse bust of Lincoln is surrounded by 3 inscriptions that have become near omnipresent on U.S. coinage. In God we trust, which first appeared on U.S. coins during the Civil War 1864 and was later mandated broadly by Congress in the 1950s. Liberty, an all-caps reminder of the Republic's founding ideal that has appeared on U.S. coins since the beginning, and the date 1957 with the D-Mint mark. Flip it, and the reverse legend e pluribus enum out of many. One, a motto proposed in 1776 and long used to symbolize the union of the original 13 colonies, sits above to stylized wheat ears framing 1 cent and United States of America. Physically, the piece is the classic pre-1980 2 cent alloy, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, weighing about 3.11 grams and measuring 19.05 millimeters in diameter, with a plain edge. With a mintage comfortably over 1 billion pieces, the 1957 D is common in circulated grades, worth only a few cents unless it's an especially sharp, lustrous red example graded at the very top of the scale, or a coin showing an attractive errors such as a repunched mint mark or PM or a dramatic die crack BI breaks between the B and E of Liberty are collected on Lincoln cents of this era. Yet even the humblest pocket war 1957 D silently repeats the condensed American creed every time you look at it. A nation under God, stitched from many into one, anchored to liberty. Now pull the camera across the Atlantic to the equally slogan-dense face of modern French coins, where you encounter liberté, egalite, fraternit, the tripartite motto born in the French Revolution, first floated in 1789 to 1790, popularized and contested in cycles through the 19th century, and made constitutionally official in 1946 and again in 1958, and Republic Francaise. On many mid-20th century French pieces, those words are married to imagery shaped by the sculptor Henry Lagerfeld 1908 to 1981, whose clear, sober classicism gave Marianne the allegorical female face of the Republic a modern post-war profile on circulating aluminum bronze francs. Lagerfeld's Marianne is not the tempestuous Liberty of Delacroix's canvas, but a steadier, forward-looking figure, often crowned with a Phrygian cap, ears of wheat, or olive branches around her, visual grammar that quietly rehearses Republican social priorities, civic freedom, social equality, fraternity, solidarity, prosperity, peace. If the U.S. Cent places its theological and federal mottos up front and lets Lincoln personify the nation, many French coins prefer the abstract republic personified as Marianne, coupled with the philosophical triad that has, despite interruptions, Empire, Restoration, Vichy, become France's enduring moral shorthand. In both countries, then, the legends are doing heavy ideological lifting. E pluribus unum points to federal unity amid diversity, while liberté, egalite, fraternit declares a normative social contract. In God we trust enshrines a theistic affirmation that, although first born from Civil War anxieties, was reaffirmed during the Cold War, while France's aggressively secular Licite leaves deity out of its coinage but centers the collective bond of fraternity. Instead, both traditions also show how numismatics is art history in miniature. Brenner's low-relief portrait of Lincoln introduced the then novel idea of placing a real person, not an allegorical liberty, on an American circulating coin, and Lagerfeld's Marianne modernized a storied allegory for the Fourth and Fifth Republics. Both coins are also history lessons about law and policy. It required acts of Congress to standardize "In God We Trust" and reaffirm it on all currency. It took constitutional text in 1946, 1958 to anchor Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité as the official French motto. Even the seemingly throwaway word liberty on the U.S. cent and the bald republic on French pieces are juridical claims as much as decorative titles. And finally, both pieces show how everyday money is propaganda in the neutral sense, mass-distributed symbols meant to socialize citizens into a shared story. The 1950 VDB Wheat Cent, passing from lunch counters to piggy banks in the booming Cold War United States, reinforcing faith, union, and liberty. The mid-century Lagerfeuille francs clinking through a recovering, modernizing France, repeating the revolutionary trinity while a serene Marianne promises continuity of the Republic. Hold them together and you can read, in a few Latin and French words and in a couple of portraits, one of a bearded president, one of a timeless allegory, the two great republics telling themselves, and you, who they are. The next up top to what you've strung together: Liberty, Égalité, Fraternité. 1 cent 1958 D. United States of America, e pluribus unum, in God we trust. Liberty, Republic, Lagerfeuille is, in effect, a compact collage of two different numismatic worlds. The 1958 D Lincoln Wheat Cent of the United States, a coin dense with American mottos like e pluribus unum, in God we trust, and liberty, and the mid-20th century French coins of the nascent Fifth Republic, signed by the sculptor-engraver André Lagerfeuille and proudly proclaiming the Republican triad Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. Read together these legends, let us see how two democracies, emerging from very different historical lineages, chose to miniaturize their founding ideas on everyday pocket change. Consider first the 1958 D Lincoln Cent, struck at Denver, hence the D. It is the final year of the classic wheat ears reverse, introduced in 1909 for the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth by designer Victor David Brenner. On the obverse, Brenner's right-facing Lincoln portrait is encircled by the word liberty to the left, the date 1958 with the D mint mark below it to the right, and the national motto "In God We Trust" arching above, an invocation formalized as the official U.S. motto by Congress in 1956. But present on cents since 1909. Flip it over and you meet the agricultural symbolism of two stylized wheat ears, framing the denomination 1 cent, the country name United States of America, and the early American motto "E pluribus unum", out of many, one. A phrase selected for the Great Sale in the 18th century and revived numismatically on nearly all U.S. coins from the late 19th century onward. Historically, 1958 is numismatically liminal. In 1959, the reverse would change to the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, marking a new visual era. Because 1958 D cents were struck in huge quantities, hundreds of millions, most surviving. Examples are extremely common and worth only face value in circulated grades. Their interest to collectors lies in high-grade, brilliantly preserved red road pieces certified at MS66 or MS67, where the economics of condition rarity suddenly turn an everyday coin into a registry set prize. Collectors describe copper cents by color designations: VN, RB, road because copper tones toward brown as it oxidizes. Full original red luster is scarce on coins that actually circulated. As a physical object, the 1958 D cent is struck in the familiar bronze alloy of its era, 95% copper, with tin and zinc making up the balance, a composition that would itself be appended decades later by the 1980 to transition to copper-plated zinc. But the design's real weight is ideological. Lincoln's visage functions as an American civic shrine. The very presence of his portrait, the first real person on a circulating U.S. coin in 1909, turned the lowly cent into a daily democratic ritual and argument that the Republic's endurance rests on historical memory, liberty preserved through remembrance, national unity, pluribus unum, and a theistic rhetoric of trust in God we trust that became more central during the Cold War atmosphere of the 1950s. Now pivot to France, where your keywords Republic, Liberté, Egalite, Fraternité, and Lagerfeuille pull us into 1958 as a year of constitutional revolution, Charles de Gaulle's return, and the birth of the Fifth Republic. In this new constitutional framework, French circulating coinage produced by the Monnaie de Paris continued to parade the Marianne, the allegorical, Phrygian capped embodiment of the Republic, and the foundational triptych motto first crystallized during the Revolution, but constitutionally reaffirmed and culturally re-energized in the 20th century. André Lagerfeuille, 1903–1972, a French sculptor and medalist, was one of the artists whose signature Lagerfeuille appears on mid-century French coins and medals. His work, alongside that of figures like Henry Lagerfeulle's contemporaries and predecessors Oscar Rodé's Samus, for instance, helped modernize and standardize the Republic's visual language of citizenship in metal. Lagerfeulle's Marianne is typically calm, idealized, and neoclassically clean, and every woman transmuted into a national icon, carrying forward the Revolution's universalist project, but expressed with 20th century sculptural restraint, precise planes, understated volumes, and a didactic clarity well suited to mass reproduction on plankets of nickel, aluminum bronze, or copper nickel. Where the American cent compresses union, piety, and personified leadership Lincoln into a small bronze disc, the French coin compresses universal rights, equality before the law, and fraternity as social glue into an allegory Marianne whose Phrygian cap is a permanent semaphore of emancipation. Even their typography speaks differently. The U.S. legends tend to be blocky, straightforward, capitalized declarations. French legends often flow with diacritics and tacticolite. Fraternité sit more comfortably as part of an integrated graphic field with laurel sprays, olive branches, or agricultural emblems, signaling the Republic's civil humanism and agrarian roots without resorting to literal portraits of statesmen. Economically and historically, the two traditions also mirror their respective post-war trajectories. The 1958 descent belongs to an America cresting into post-war affluence, solidifying anti-communist identity, hence the officialization of "In God We Trust," and preparing to celebrate Lincoln anew with the memorial reverse. The French Fifth Republic coinage under Lagerfeulle's era is minted in the shadow of decolonization, the Algerian War, and constitutional re-engineering meant to stabilize executive power while still invoking the revolution's egalitarian ideals. The coins thus perform a balancing act, modern Republican pragmatism wrapped in classical Republican symbolism. From a collector's perspective, both theories are approachable gateways into deeper numismatic study. A U.S. beginner can learn grading, color designations, die states, and mint marks by sifting through rolls of 1950s Lincoln cents, distinguishing a dull Brano from a vibrant, satiny Rodem S66. A French collector can trace changes in metal alloys, denomination reforms, and artistic signatures, Lagerfeuille among them, across decades, while watching how Liberté, Egalite, Fraternité is rearranged typographically and contextually, sometimes prominent, sometimes secondary, but always present as a constitutional drumbeat. There's also a philosophical pleasure in juxtaposing two small coins to test the semantic density of mottos. E pluribus unum is a statement about the mechanics of political formation many states into one union, while Liberté, Egalite, Fraternité is a triadic ethical program for how citizens ought to coexist. In God We Trust introduces a metaphysical verticality absent from the French secular Republican formula, signaling that U.S. civic identity, especially in the 1950s, made comfortable room for public religiosity, whereas the French coinage insists on a laic secular Republican ethos anchored in human rights and civic virtue. Visually and textually, then, these coins are pocket constitutions. The 1958 VDB Lincoln Cent, last of the wheats, closes a half-century chapter of American numismatic design rooted in a single, sanctified historical figure and layered mottos of unity and faith. The contemporaneous French pieces engraved by Lagerfeuille reopen under a new constitutional order the Revolution's unfinished conversation about how freedom, equality, and fraternity can be reconciled in a modern state. Hold them side by side and you feel to democracy speaking different dialects of the same language, the language of ideals, compressed into copper, nickel, and bronze, struck by the millions so that every citizen, every day, can touch literally the words that built their nations. If you want, I can expand this into a true. The next up, top 3, it sounds like you're looking for a very detailed, narrative-style explanation that ties together the phrases you quoted: liberty, liberty, eagle-eyed, fraternate, 1 cent 1950 to D, United States of America, e pluribus unum, in God we trust, republic, and lager fool. Read as a group. Those words point to 2 different numismatic coin metal traditions that people often encounter in mixed boxes of old coins. A 1950 to D United States Lincoln Wheat Cent, the 1 cent, United States of America, e pluribus unum, peace within God we trust, and liberty on the obverse. A French coin or metal carrying the national motto Liberté, Eagle-eyed, Fraternite, the legend Republique Francaise, and the signature Lager Fool, almost certainly referring to Henry Lager Fool, 1907 to 1981. A noted French sculptor and medalist whose name appears on a variety of official French medals and some mid-20th century designs. Below is a self-contained, long-form explanation told in paragraphs rather than bullet points covering the history, design details, specifications, varieties, grading, typical values, and cultural meaning of both objects, plus how to evaluate and store them. If any of this doesn't match what you actually have in hand, send me clear, well-lit photos of both sides and I'll pin it down precisely. The 1950 to D United States Lincoln Wheat Cent, what it is, why it says what it says, and what matters to collectors. See if your piece reads 1 cent, United States of America, e pluribus unum on the reverse, and asterisk asterisk, in God we trust, liberty, and the date 1952 with a small D mint mark under the date on the obverse. You're looking at a Lincoln Wheat Cent struck in Denver in 1952. This coin belongs to the long-running Lincoln Cent series introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it was designed by Victor David Brenner. His tiny initials VDB, after some early controversy in 1909, appear subtly at the base of Lincoln's shoulder on later issues, including your date. Though they're easy to miss without magnification, the wheat ears reversed is stylized. Sheaves framing the denomination was used from 1909 through 1958, after which the reverse switched to the Lincoln Memorial design in 1959. From a technical standpoint, in 1950 to D cent is a bronze coin, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, 19.05 millimeters in diameter, weighing about 3.11 grams, and with a plain smooth edge. The D identifies the Denver Mint. The other facilities that struck Lincoln Cents in the classic era were Philadelphia, no mint mark before 1980, San Francisco S, and occasionally West Point, and others much later. In the early 1950s, post-war economic expansion kept the mint striking huge runs of cents. 1950 to D coins were produced in the hundreds of millions, making them readily available in circulation for decades. Because of that large mintage and the fact that copper holds up reasonably well in circulation, most 1950 to D cents you encounter will be common, with modest collector value in circulated grades, often just a few cents to perhaps $1 and less. The coin is in exceptionally high mint state with bright original red road color and virtually no marks. Collectors grade Lincoln Cents on the Sheldon 1 to 70 scale and also track color designations B and brown, RB red brown, and road red. Most coins that actually circulated will have oxidized to brown, while brilliant, freshly minted red pieces exist primarily because someone saved them right away in rolls or as part of a collection. A truly gem quality 195 to D in MS6 XMS6 7 road certified by PCGS. NGC can command solid 3-figure prices because the population of coins in the pristine is small compared to how many were minted. Meanwhile, low-grade, fully brown examples GVF are generally curiosities worth pocket change. Cleaning, harshly removing toning with abrasives or chemicals will almost always destroy value, leaving the surface unnaturally bright or hairlined. Trained graders spot that instantly, so if you suspect you have a nice uncirculated example, do not clean it to soft cotton or nitrile gloves. Hold it by the edge and store it in an inert, PVC-free holder. Specialists in this date look for dye varieties and errors. For 1950 to D, you'll see references to RP Misery Punch mint marks, tiny secondary D impressions under or beside the main D, created before 1990 when mint marks were hand-punched into working dies. These varieties can add a bit of premium if they're bald and the coin is in high grade. Die cracks, chips, and minor doubling also occur, but most are small curiosities. If you think you see something, high-resolution macro photos straight on, good lighting can help determine if it's a listed variety worth submitting to a grading service or variety attribution service. The legends you read on the coin encode. Core American political ideas. In God We Trust has appeared on U.S. coins since the Civil War era and became standard on all coinage by the mid-20th century. Liberty reflects the central value of the American Republic and dates back to the very first U.S. coins. E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one, started appearing in 1795 and celebrates the union of many states into a single nation. It is traditionally placed on the reverse of the Lincoln Wheat Cent above the wheat ears. Liberté, Egalite, Fraternite, Republique Francaise, and Lagerfoule, how the French motto, the Republic's identity. And a 20th century sculptor, medalist meet on coins and medals, other cluster of words you mention, Liberté, Egalite, Fraternite, Republique. And the signature Lagerfoule belongs to a French context, liberté. Egalite, fraternite liberty, equality, fraternity crystallized during the French Revolution, was officially adopted in 1848 and reaffirmed in 1880. It remains the national motto of France. You will find it prominently inscribed on French coins, banknotes, passports, public buildings, and legal documents. On circulating French coins of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Republics, the motto often forms part of the reverse legend, sometimes abbreviated or arranged around agricultural motifs: wheat, olives, oak symbolizing prosperity, strength, and civic virtue, or around an allegorical figure such as Marianne, the female personification of the Republic. Republique Francaise, often spelled out fully around the obverse portrait, identifies the issuing authority, analogous to United States of America on U.S. coins. French pieces commonly carry the name or monogram of the engraver artist. When you see Lagerfoule, it very likely refers to Henry Lagerfoule, a 20th century French sculptor and medalist associated with official French art institutions. Lagerfoule's signature appears on state medals, commemoratives, and some circulating or pattern coin designs of the mid-1900s. Without a photo, it's hard to say precisely which denomination or medal you have, because multiple French issues of that era, especially medals marking public works, institutions, or awards, bear his name. Unlike the U.S. cent we just discussed, the composition, diameter, and mintage of your Lagerfoule signed piece will depend entirely on the specific type. France struck coins in aluminum, bronze, nickel, and silver across the 1930s-1970s. And official medals could be in bronze, silvered bronze, or silver, sometimes with high-relief portraits and edge markings like cornucopia mint marks or bronze inscriptions from the Monnaie de Paris Mint. French engraving traditions put strong emphasis on artistic signature and allegory. Just as American collectors recognize Victor David Brenner or Augustus St. Gaudens on U.S. coinage, French collectors track names like Daniel Dupuy, Oscar Rodi, Pierre-Alexandre Morlin, Lucien Bézer, and indeed Henry Lagerfoule. These artists often maintained careers in sculpture beyond coinage, producing monuments and teaching at national schools. Thus, seeing Lagerfoule invites you to evaluate not only the numismatic attributes, grade, rarity, mintage, but also the art historical dimension, how the relief is modeled, how Marianne or other symbols are represented, and how that fits into France's visual identity in the mid-20th century. If your piece is a circulating French coin, its collector value will hinge on the date, mint mark if any, condition wear, luster, strike quality, and whether it's a scarce key date or a common workhorse. Many post-war aluminum coins, for instance, are very common in worn condition but become far scarcer in fully lustrous, unspotted, sharply struck mint state. If, instead, it's a metal, common for lager full value will depend on metal, mintage often unpublished or low, and demand for the subject matter. For example, metals for major exhibitions, government ministries, universities, or scientific achievements can command strong interest. High-grade French metals with crisp edges and original patina are actively collected. Again, do not clean them, as their natural bronze or silver toning is part of their appeal. How to authenticate, grade, and store both pieces, and when it's worth sending them for certification for both the 1950 VDB Lincoln Cent and a French lager full piece. The first step is a careful visual inspection under good light. Use a 10 loop to look for original luster, cartwheel like on the US Cent, satiny or matte on some French strikes, contact marks, tiny nicks and scratches, hairlines from cleaning parallel. Thin lines in the fields, color and patina, natural red or brown gradients on copper, original golden or olive patina on bronze metals, edge lettering or mint marks on French metals. Sometimes the cornucopia mark of the Paris Mint and a metal declaration like bronze will be on the edge. If your items appear exceptionally well preserved, for example, a nearly flawless blazing red 1950 VDB or a French metal with perfect high relief detail and untouched surface. The next up top for the 197 for the United States quarter dollar is a coin that belongs to the Washington Quarter series, which has been in continuous production since 1932. It bears the iconic inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and "United States of America," along with the pluribus unum, which is Latin for out of many. 1. The mint mark D indicates that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado. The obverse of the coin features the profile of George Washington, the first president of the United States, designed by John Flanagan. The reverse shows the majestic heraldic eagle with outstretched wings, clutching arrows and olive branches, symbolizing both military strength and peace. The coin is made of a copper nickel-clad composition, outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, and weighs approximately 5.67 grams, with a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, while the 197 4D quarter is not considered rare. Holds historical significance as it was minted during a period of economic challenges, including inflation and changes in U.S. coinage metals following the silver phase-out in 1965. The phrases "Liberty," "Eagle-ite," "Fraternite," and "Republic," lager full you mention are associated with French national ideals, meaning liberty, equality, fraternity, which is the motto of the French Republic. It is likely that this coin is being compared symbolically with French values, as both nations emphasize freedom and unity in their mottos. The U.S. motto "In God We Trust" was officially adopted in the mid-20th century, while "E pluribus unum" has been a traditional motto since the late 18th century. Collectors often value the 197 4D Washington quarter more for its historical and cultural significance rather than for its monetary value, as most circulated examples are worth their face value 25 cents. However, uncirculated or special condition coins, such as those with full mint luster or errors like double die strikes, can command higher prices, sometimes ranging from $5 to $50 or more depending on grade. The 1970 4D quarter reflects a combination of American history, numismatic art, and cultural values, connecting the ideals of liberty and unity with the symbolism of George Washington and the American eagle. This coin also embodies the post-Vietnam War era spirit, when the United States was undergoing political and economic transitions, compared with the French motto "Liberté," "Eagle-ite," "Fraternite," which signifies the values of the French Revolution. Both nations celebrate freedom and collective unity, albeit through different historical narratives. The sculptural details by Flanagan give the quarter a sense of dignity and strength, making it an enduring symbol of American identity. Collectors, historians, and enthusiasts of numismatics often study such coins not just for their metallic composition, but also for the stories they tell about the time period they represent. The next up, top 5. The 1965 United States quarter dollar is a fascinating coin with deep historical, cultural, and economic significance, particularly when analyzed alongside symbolic mottos like liberty, egalite, fraternite, a French revolutionary motto meaning liberty, equality, brotherhood, and e pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one, which is prominently featured on U.S. coinage. Although the 1965 quarter is purely American in design and symbolism, these mottos all reflect the values of democracy, unity, and freedom that did shape modern republics. The 1965 quarter is part of the Washington Quarter series, first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By 1965, due to rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint made a major shift from the 90% silver composition of quarters 1932 to 1964 to a copper-nickel-clad composition, making the 1965 issue the first non-silver quarter intended for general circulation. The obverse front of the coin, designed by John Flanagan, features the left-facing portrait of George Washington with the inscriptions "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the year 1965. The reverse back depicts an eagle with outstretched wings clutching arrows, symbolizing strength and readiness, surrounded by the motto United States of America, e pluribus unum, and the denomination quarter dollar. The coin does not carry a mint mark, as all 1965 quarters were struck at the Philadelphia Mint during the transition period. The introduction of clad coinage marked a pivotal moment in U.S. economic history, driven by the Coinage Act of 1965, which eliminated silver from dimes and quarters. Collectors often view the 1965 quarter as a key transitional piece, though in circulated condition it is common and holds minimal monetary value above face value. However, error coins from this year, such as the rare 1965 silver quarter struck on leftover silver plankets from 1964, are highly sought after by numismatists and can fetch thousands of dollars at auction. The mottos and inscriptions on the coin reflect the foundational principles of the United States. Liberty embodies freedom and self-governance, while "In God We Trust," adopted as the official national motto in 1956, signifies faith and national identity. Similarly, pluribus unum, used since the 18th century, highlights unity among the diverse states forming the federal union. When compared with liberty, egalite, fraternite, a French motto born during the 1789 Revolution, one can see parallel ideals of human rights, civic duty, and equality shaping both American and French Republican values. The 1965 quarter also stands at the crossroads of 20th century U.S. monetary policy. As silver prices surged in the early 1960s, the government faced a shortage of precious metal for coin production, prompting the introduction of the copper-nickel sandwich composition, outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This decision not only ensured the availability of coins for commerce, but also symbolized economic pragmatism over traditionalism. The quarter measures 24.26 millimeters in diameter and weighs 5.67 grams, slightly lighter than its silver predecessor, 6.25 grams. Its durability and resistance to tarnishing made it suitable for everyday transactions. Over time, the Washington quarter evolved in design, but the 1965 issue remains iconic as the first clad quarter and a marker of modern U.S. coinage. From a historical lens, 1965 was also a year of social change in America, with the civil rights movement reaching significant milestones, reflecting the spirit of liberty and equality, much like the French motto "Liberty, egalite, fraternite" suggests. While French sculptor Pierre Lagerfeld is known for creating artistic works that celebrate liberty and fraternity, his name appears unrelated to U.S. quarters, yet symbolically connects to the shared ideals of freedom and republics. The Washington quarter's enduring design was so effective that it remained largely unchanged until the 1999 50-state quarters program, which revitalized interest in quarter collecting. For collectors, a pristine mint state MS 1965 quarter may hold a small premium, but the true allure lies in its historical role during America's shift from precious metal coinage. In summary, the 1965 quarter dollar is more than just a piece of currency. It represents a fusion of artistry, politics, and economics. The inscriptions like Liberty, E Pluribus Unum, and In God We Trust tie into the universal ideals of freedom, unity, and faith, akin to the revolutionary French motto Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. Its historical context, especially the transition from silver to clad coinage, makes it a significant collectible and a symbol of mid-20th century American values and resilience. The next up, top 6, the 1987 Washington quarter dollar is part of the United States Mint's long-standing Washington quarter series, which began in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The 1987 quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by the P Mint mark, and is composed primarily of a copper nickel clad, with a core of pure copper and outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel. The obverse of the coin features a portrait of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, with inscriptions such as Liberty at the top, In God We Trust to the left, and the year 1987 below Washington's bust. The reverse side of the coin depicts the heraldic bald eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows symbolizing defense, with olive branches representing peace, and surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America. E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one, and quarter dollar, while the phrase Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité is not an official part of U.S. coins as it is the national motto of France. The concept of liberty is symbolically represented in American coinage through the prominent placement of the word liberty on the obverse. The 1987 quarter had a substantial mintage, with over 1 billion coins produced, making it a common circulation coin with little numismatic value unless in uncirculated or proof condition. High-grade specimens, especially those graded MS 65 or above, or coins with striking errors such as off-centers, double dies, or planchet flows, may be of interest to collectors and command higher prices in the market. The coin weighs 5.67 grams and measures 24.26 millimeters in diameter with a reeded edge, a standard for U.S. quarters since 1965 when silver content was removed. From a historical standpoint, the Washington quarter represents both the legacy of America's founding father and the evolving nature of U.S. coinage, moving from silver to clad metals due to economic factors. While the 1987 edition does not feature any special commemorative design, it remains a vital piece in the timeline of American currency. For collectors, finding a 1987 quarter in pristine, mint state condition, especially one with full luster and no contact marks, can be rewarding. The presence of inscriptions like In God We Trust reflects the enduring religious and cultural ethos of the United States, while E Pluribus Unum highlights unity in diversity. Though the reference to Republic and Lagerfeuille relates more to French coinage and medallion designs Louis-Oscar Rodi and other engravers of the French Republic, it is worth noting that both American and French mottos share a philosophical alignment rooted in freedom, equality, and fraternity, values celebrated by democracies worldwide. In coin studies, the 1987 quarter serves as an accessible entry point for beginner collectors due to its availability and affordability, while also being a key example of late 20th century U.S. minting technology. Even though it does not contain precious metals, its historical and symbolic value is noteworthy. Collectors seeking a deeper appreciation for the coin may look for proof versions produced by the San Francisco Mint, which feature mirror-like fields and frosted designs, often commanding higher premiums. As part of the Washington Quarter series, the 1987 is a precursor to the later state quarters program launched in 1999, which revolutionized interest in coin collecting. Thus, the 1987 quarter stands as a bridge between traditional designs and modern commemorative trends, embodying both a historical tribute and a practical piece of American commerce.